Hi there, this is Wendy Down with your Consciousness Playground recording for Tuesday, May the 22nd, 2012. I'm excited about this particular recording because it is the kickoff for our newest theme here in the Consciousness Playground, and I'm calling that theme The Future of Aging. On this recording, I'm going to set the stage and give you 3 exercises, 3 ways to experience or get a taste for what life would be like without any concept or any experience or any framework of seeing yourself or others through the lens of age. The theme has been percolating for me for a while, but it really came into focus last week when I was at a conference called the Conversations Among Masters Coaching Conference. And 2 speakers in particular really pulled things together for me. One were some ideas that were presented by a man named Werner Eckert, who is a really key figure in the world of personal development, in particular in the importance of language in creating mastery or experiencing mastery in a topic or area of human endeavor. And just in brief, one of the things that I realized when I was listening to Werner speak is that we have all become unconscious masters in the language of aging and age. And yet age itself does not exist. There is no place that you can go and see age. You can see wrinkles. You can see gray hair. You can see braces on teeth and a pimply face. You can see chubby little legs. You can see bodies, for example, of humans of all different expressions. But age itself, age does not exist, except as a concept or an interpretation that we have created and which exists in our mind and which is part of our common, shared, unconscious language and assumptions about how the world works. And it's a framework that we inherited and have never thought, most of us, to question. And yet this is a point in human history where we have the potential to completely step outside the framework of seeing through the lens of the word age or the concept of age. And as we open up the possibility that it would be conceivable to move through the experiences of our life without the word age or the framework of age being a relevant or important lens, there are whole new experiences and ways of being that we can step into. And to me, one of the most exciting possibilities that this opens up is based on Bruce Lipton's work and others like him, who are showing that our physiology, our biology, is so fundamentally tied up with and reflective of our beliefs. And because all of us, at least in the Western world, unconsciously share a common basis of our human lives and others' human lives and the inevitability of what happens to us over time, we share the common basis that age is the most critical piece of that, or the defining idea behind that. If we are able to step outside that framework, we have no idea how our biology, how our physiology, how our bodies could show up. And so this is the basic idea or opening I want to create here with you in the Consciousness Playground for the next period of time. I'm not sure how long we'll explore this topic, the future of aging, but we'll do it as long as there's interesting things to explore. So in just a moment, I'm going to lead you through 3 potential ways, 3 quick exercises to give yourself a first opening into, or first way to spot or become aware of either the unconscious field that we've all lived in about aging, and to taste the alternative. And one more piece that I took away from Werner Eckert's talk at the conference was that at the moment, he didn't speak specifically about aging, but at the moment we have no language to talk about an alternative. In other words, even in my own work in the last year and a half or so, exploring an alternative to aging, for example, in the youthening program that many members of the Consciousness Playground took part in the beta test of, and others can take part in when it launches again on September 1st, my 50th birthday. Even when I developed that program, or was at the level of thought that I was at then, the idea of youthening still was thinking along the scale of age. In other words, at that time, my question was, is it possible to go backwards in age as opposed to what we think that it's inevitable to move forwards in age? And now what I realize is that it's actually possible to conceive of completely stepping outside of the framework of age as a relevant concept altogether. But from Werner Eckert, I realized that at the moment, we have no language to describe the alternative. And so we can't really be masters or even get our heads or our thoughts or any communication around the alternative without starting to have some language. So this would be one of the things I would love to explore with you over the course of this Future of Aging series, is to see what types of language we could start to use that does not reference age, but still references a move forward through experiences. And at the moment, the best way that I'm holding on to that possibility without really having the language came to me from a story that was also shared at the conference. A second speaker that was there was by the name of Jim Selman, Selman, and he is an expert on aging and exploring alternatives to aging. At one point, Jim's son, Clark, came up to share in the conversation with his father, and Clark was describing a story about an experience he'd had with his grandfather, who's in his 90s. And I just want to share the essence of the story, a phrase that Clark used that really captured my imagination. So normally, here's a young, maybe 30-year-old, maybe younger, in having a day or a time with his grandfather who's in his 90s. And so already as I describe those two people and their relationships, you picture something, you picture potential, you picture just unconsciously, there's a framework that locks into place about what potential exists for each of those, maybe what the nature of the relationship is, maybe what their bodies look like, all kinds of things. But what Clark was saying was that on this particular day that he was with his grandfather had spent a good part of the day planting trees, little seedlings that probably wouldn't grow into anything much except over the course of the next 5 or 10 years. And the phrase that Clark used to describe the nature of their relationship that day, which to me was so age-free, so un-age related, was he said, "I realized at that moment, both of us were there, my grandfather and I, both of us equally alive, both of us equally present, both of us equally in the moment and in the experience together." And to me, it just gave the language of it was completely without reference to age or thoughts about relative age. And so the words just really stuck in my mind because of the non-reference to age. So it's a state of possibility, and his words just captured what's possible in that moment for me, and what I would love to see us together move more and more into. To build on that, one of the most amazing things that I've discovered in my work is that just by planting the seed of an idea, by being able to, state a vision or state a potential that we haven't considered before, it opens up that possibility. Just like with the youthening program, just by giving the suggestion that maybe it would be possible to grow younger rather than older over time, sure enough, many, many people who took part in the beta test of that program found that their youth test results actually improved over the course of the 6 months of that program. So there's something about having a container or a framework, for example, the Consciousness Playground here, that holds open a possibility over an extended period of time to allow each of us who are interested in it to move further and further into that potential. And this is exactly what I want to do with the topic of the future of aging. So let me just take one moment and see if there's anything else I want to share right now in terms of context for setting up this experiment for you. There is so much to say about it and so many pieces to become aware of and undo. And I hope that we'll have lots of conversation about what comes up for you, what comes up for me as we explore this over the next period of time. But just let me stop for one moment and see if there's any of that I really want to say right now before we move into the exercises. And actually, there isn't. And so let me just guide you into these 3 exercises, these 3 openings, these 3 ways to make practical in your life the concept of creating a different future experience of age and a different future experience of aging, both for yourself and your experience of other people as well. The first one is super simple and super practical, and it's designed to bring into awareness much of the unconscious habits that we all share of seeing each other and ourselves through the lens of age, and how significant we have made that feature. So, for example, one way that this has become really striking to me is when I read a newspaper or magazine article and it mentions a person, almost inevitably, right beside that person's name, it mentions their age. So, Joe Smith, age 29, and then what Joe said or did. So it's like the 3 big definers that we have that give us the framework or the context for understanding a person seems to be, or has been, name, usually gender, and age. And so a really sort of fun and enlightening and playful way to sort of break the habit, to disrupt your thinking about that, and to start to break some of those unconscious habits is for the next while, when you see yourself make a reference to someone's age, or you see a reference to age be noted, like I said, say in a newspaper article, to substitute the age as a definer with something else, and in particular, something ridiculous. And we could actually call this, just if we want a name for it, the smoothie experiment. And I say smoothie because one of the definers that I've been playing with a little bit is to substitute the importance or the definer of someone's age with what they have for breakfast, which is a ridiculous thought. But just imagine that you lived in a society, and I lived in a society, where what a person liked to have for breakfast was one of the most important things that we all used to define that person, to understand that person, to relate to that person, and to have a context within which to really, on a fundamental level, to understand who that person was. So, for example, imagine you're reading a newspaper article and it says Joe Smith, age 54. When you see the age 54, substitute that with this phrase, Joe Smith, smoothie. And then what he did. Just as an idea, you could use anything else. You could use blood type, right? Because we all have a blood type. So you could say Joe Smith, Rh positive, or AB positive, or any other of the features that differentiate one person from the other. But I just like the idea of choosing something ridiculous, like what a person most likes to have for breakfast, because it really highlights what's been unconscious. So let's call that the smoothie experiment. And again, just to reiterate, the point of the exercise is just to become much more consciously aware of when we're using age as a definer of a person, and what happens if you substitute age with some other feature, and just to play with that in a fun and light way for a while. The other thing that's interesting about that is just to notice in yourself what reaction you have when there's somebody that you're interested in, maybe a public figure or a celebrity or someone who has some quality you're interested in, but you don't know their age. You don't know if that person's 20, you don't know if they're 40, you don't know if they're 60 or 70, and just notice, become aware of the how you may search for, or you may be looking for their age to help yourself have a context within which to place them. It's very interesting. So that's exercise number one. It's little. It's just an awareness exercise. The second exercise I would suggest is more of a mental exercise. And the idea for me comes from the work of Byron Katie, if you're familiar with her. And the exercise would be this: to sit for a moment, and actually you can do this right now if you want to, and imagine how you would see yourself differently and how you would see other people differently if the concept of age did not exist. In other words, if you were not able to even think about your age, or you having an age, or them having an age, if that whole concept of progressing through time, getting older, didn't exist. If you were, for example, to look at someone in high school and not be able to think the thought of age 14 or age 15, or teenager. You can actually try that for a moment right now. Think of someone you know who is in high school. Bring them to mind. And then see if you can notice what changes if you weren't able to see them through a filter of age. If you weren't able to think the thought, this is a teenager. What would fall away? And what would come into focus? How would your relationship in this moment, as you're thinking of that person, how would your relationship become more direct, perhaps? What in them would be new, would be newly apparent, maybe? What would you see and be aware of that you hadn't seen before? And what would fall away between the two of you? Let's try that again. Let's do that in two ways. Let's choose another person, anyone in your life, that a fundamental feature or definer of the relationship you have with them has included age, either a relative, something about their age, something about your age, something about their age that's influenced how you see them or relate to them. Choose that person. Become aware of a limitation, a hesitation, a restriction that's been present as a result of the filter of age being applied to your view of them or applied to something about that person as seen from your perspective. And now see what happens if you were unable to apply an age in any way to that individual. If any clues of age were to suddenly become absent, and if for the first time you were able to directly experience that individual without the filter, conscious and unconscious, of age. What would become more apparent, more prominent, more obvious? And again, what would fall away? simply because the filter of age didn't exist. And now let's try it with you. Actually, this is how we're going to do this. I'm going to lead you now in the third exercise to do something that would be working purely on the level of states of being or energetics, and then I'll lead you through the experience of viewing yourself. To set the stage, whenever consciousness is ready for a leap forward in evolution, that leap forward becomes accessible first through an inner experience that people have. Insights that a visionary might have. For example, ideas that start to come. But always, always, there's a field of energy, a feeling, a state of being, a shift in the internal experience that is the precursor or the template of its later physical manifestation. And because this idea of living without the framework of age in any way, because that potential is starting to open up, we can access the state of being now. So if you want to play with it, one way to do that, as I describe this, is close your eyes and take one of your hands and turn the palm upward. Hold it as though a ball was about to drop into it. And now, as you do that, just check in with your own willingness to sense on a very subtle level, perhaps, what I'm describing as a shift in your inner state, which will not likely come with descriptions or words or feelings. It may be very subtle. You may feel something, you may feel movement or wave or energy, you may get some images. Let those be what they are. And just check in that you're open to receiving whatever is here for you to sense or feel or receive. And now, if you're willing, and to the extent that you're willing, and without needing to force it or work at it or make it be more than it is, simply invite consciousness itself to drop into your upturned hand that state of being in which a person, you and I, are completely present, living in the moment, free of any morphic field that involves or relates to age as a relevant concept. And just notice what happens. Notice if you sense anything. You can even pretend. You may feel something or imagine something dropping into your hand. And if so, just pay attention to it. It may be very subtle. You may not feel anything. If not, that's okay. You can just let that slowly or quickly seep up your arm and into your body, not making it happen, but just observing what's happening. Or you may want to take it and move that imaginary or subtle ball of energy or light or information or whatever it is. You might want to move that to another place in your body. So if you feel like you'd like to do that, you can imagine dropping it into your head or touching your heart or moving it somewhere. You can't really get this wrong, but you can participate with it a little bit if it interests you to do so. You can even move it to a few different places if you like. And as you do, just observe what there is to observe. Again, without trying to make it more than it is. There's no one experience to have here. This is your nature, your essence, very subtly working on layers of your consciousness that aren't easily sensed by the five senses. So just let yourself be immersed in the playful idea of that. And now, if you're ready, see if there's a way that you can picture yourself or feel yourself or somehow, some other way, experience yourself as you would be if you were unable to think of yourself as having an age. In other words, if age, that sound was a foreign word that you did not understand and therefore didn't have any way to access the whole realm of interpretation that that word captures. And if you want to, you can even play with this a little bit. Imagine that whole morphic field, to use the word of Rupert Sheldrake. Imagine the whole field of age and all that represents being somewhere there around you, but not actually part of you. It may actually have completely occupied and shared the same physical space that you share, that you exist in or most focused into. But even if that morphic field of age, state of being, the energy field that goes with the word age, is present, see what it's like if you were completely unable on every level to even interact with it. If in fact you were able to have whatever relationship you want with it, including having it not be accessible or having it sit somewhere else. Notice how, as you do that to whatever degree you're able to, you notice that the presence that you are, that's free of the field and the concept and the idea of age, is the most fundamental you that you are. It's the same you that's experienced every moment of your life, that's been present when you were 4, when you were 12, when you were whatever age, and will always be. It's the timeless part of you, the most you. And this is what, over the next weeks or months of exploration, as we play with the future of aging here in the consciousness playground, we want to completely ground you in so that this timelessness, this eternal, constant, unchanging, timeless you that's completely unrelated to any concept of age, we want that to come to the forefront of your experience, to be the primary vehicle through which you experience every moment of your life. And as you and I allow that to be the case moment by moment by moment, we really have no idea yet how that will change who we show up as, how we relate to each other, and what happens with our physical bodies, how they respond, and what will happen when they start to metabolize the timelessness of you rather than metabolizing time as they have until now. That's a favorite phrase of mine from Deepak Chopra. That we can metabolize eternity. Our bodies can metabolize eternity rather than metabolize time. And so I look forward to continuing to explore this with you over the weeks and probably months ahead. Bye for now.